So I agree. I echo the sentiments. NBIF is amazing, and they're driving some great things in this province, as is the Health Research Foundation, the Social Policy Network. But one mistake they made was they tried to ask an academic to tell you what they're doing in 12 minutes. That is a challenge that I think if we open the jar, it'll never get shut. So instead, I thought I'd take you through a little bit of a journey of what's going on in at least my world in the province, because I'm really excited about what's happening in the province right now. So I echo these sentiments. So I want to ask you a question, though. I can kind of see people. How many people have a car? All right. How many people take care of that car? Do we maintain it the way that we're supposed to? Take it in for regular checkups? Yeah, pretty much, right? All right, now, pretend you were a car. Do you treat yourself as well as you treat that car? Do you take it in for regular checkups? Do you do assessments? Do you make sure you're good on a day-to-day basis? I want you to think about that a little bit. We're going to really hammer home that analogy here for a couple minutes. So, I don't know about you. It's been a year or two since I was here on this stage. Some mornings I wake up feeling a little bit like this, right? Maybe it's a Monday. For some people, maybe it's a little more often. But if we're being honest with ourselves, I think sometimes this is the way we treat our seniors a little bit. We sort of say, old model, past its prime, something we have to take care of, right? But is that really the way that we thought about aging when we were younger? Didn't we see ourselves aging a little bit more like this, right? 67 GT Shelby, right? Beautiful car, age like fine wine. We all want to be classic cars, right? As we age. So what's the difference between those two things? Is there something that we can do to ensure that we're aging more like this than the truck before it? And so I want to look at that analogy a little bit. And really, in my opinion, it comes down to assessment. It comes down to making sure we're maintaining and checking to make sure that we're staying healthy. So I'm going to go through a couple different strategies that I think might help with that process. So here's the first one. Have a look at this picture. What's wrong with this picture? And it's got a couple of flat tires. This guy's having a bad day. But honestly, I think this is our current healthcare system. We wait until the wheels fall off until we actually get up and go get some help. We run our everyday lives. We hope things don't fall apart, but eventually they do. And we go ask somebody to try to fix it. If anybody doesn't believe me, how many people have waited until they were like this before they actually went to go see the doctor or go see the chiropractor or the physiotherapist? I had back surgery 3 years ago, and I can tell you this is the way I felt. So the question is that really the right approach? Should we be waiting until the wheels fall off until problems happen? Because as we know, things compound, right? I bet you that beautiful van on the highway there probably just cost himself a couple sets of new rims as well. So maybe this is a better solution. So this is maybe an annual checkup, right? This is a trained mechanic, a trained professional who's meant to check the health of your vehicle on a regular basis. And so we do this pretty well. Actually, the automotive industry has this locked right down. So you've got to go for your warranty checkups if you want to keep your warranty fresh. You've got to have your inspection sticker every year. You have to have your annual registration for your vehicle. But again, we don't really do that from a healthcare system perspective. Actually, most healthcare systems in Canada have moved away from this concept of an annual checkup. And the wording has been because they were too low yield. So they're saying with an annual checkup, the healthcare system wasn't catching enough things that would cause them to intervene. Now, I might argue if the automobile industry was as stressed for resources as our healthcare system and had to foot the bill every time you had an annual checkup, they might try to push away from annual checkups as well. So the challenge with this is it's not really preventive. An annual checkup lacks context. We haven't seen you for a full year. We don't know how things are. You've got 5 minutes to go in and explain how things are. So it's really not moving us in a direction. It's too infrequent to really get a good picture of your health. So here's the third case. How many people just got struck with fear of the notion of their dashboard looking like this? So that looks scary when you get in your car and that turns on. But what I see peace of mind. Because I know that every moment your car is running, hundreds of sensors are checking every aspect of that vehicle to make sure that it's in perfect operating health. And you don't have to worry about it. It's happening all the time. And only when something has to change, when there's a matter of intervention, does it let you know. This is the healthcare system that I want to strive for. Now, where are we on this podium in terms of where do we compare to a car? Basically, we have odometers. We have Fitbits, we have smartwatches. But how much of a diagnostic tool is the odometer on your car really? So we have to look at saying, well, how can we build in this idea of assessment and regular maintenance into ourselves to keep us aging the way we want to age? Or is that really the case? Do we really want to know that we're aging? Do we want to be reminded of that? After all, it's sort of against human psychology to put energy and invest time into things before they're really on our radar, right? We don't want to think about those things. We want to be happy, right? The problem is healthcare isn't something that we can leave off our radar. And so it needs to be there. And not only does it have to be on our individual radars, it has to be there on a population level. So we need to understand how to take our heads out of the sand, so to speak. Because I think we probably all know this adage, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, right? I think a lot of us probably know that. But the challenge is that our system is stuck. Our healthcare system is stuck. There's been a lot of recognition that says we need to move towards a more preventive type of system, but our healthcare system is so monolithic that we keep just pouring more pounds into that system, into the status quo. But the problem is it's changing and it's unsustainable. So we need to figure out how to move more towards this prevention piece. The reason for that is that the trends are a little bit scary. Our usage of the healthcare system is changing. In New Brunswick, we spend over 40% of our provincial budget on healthcare expenditures. And that's a common thread all across Canada, every Canadian province. So if anybody ever tells you that health has nothing to do with economic development, you can tell them to come talk to me. But what's a little bit scary is that we're aging, right? The demand is changing. So by 2026, 2.4 million Canadians will require some sort of long-term care. Seniors over the age of 65. By 2046, that number is going to increase to 3.3 million. So the status quo just will not work. We need to change the system. Currently, over 6 million Canadians are providing some form of unpaid long-term care to loved ones or family members. So the cost of the system is huge. And what's more, the 4 top leading causes of death in Canada right now, heart disease, stroke, COPD, and some forms of cancer, have all arguably tied to preventable chronic diseases. Preventable, right? Not necessarily curable, preventable, which means if we're going to curb that onset, we need to get out ahead of it. And so we need to figure out what is the process that we're going to take to do that. Okay, here's where I have to admit to something, and it's hard for me to say, so bear with me. I am an engineer. And as an engineer, I like technology. I know not everybody does, but I love technology, and I love data. And I like taking measurements, seeing what happens, tweaking things, and improving them. It's ingrained in my system. But I also know that technology has amazing power, not only for diagnostic potential and machine learning, but also just to engage individuals, to connect with people, and to empower them in ways that they weren't empowered before. So when I talk about technology, am I talking about the next Angry Birds? No. I'm talking about technology as a tool to help people. Like the project we just finished with Inflection Point Healthcare out of St. John, thanks to funding from the NBIF, where we looked at using technology to support informal caregivers in the home, a population that we know is incredibly stressed. And where those informal caregivers told us that using an online digital health diary gave them the permission to think about themselves for a moment during the day. Or wearing a Fitbit allowed them to set their own personal goals that caused them to think about themselves for a moment and not just the other person that they're working for. And where one woman actually was able to convince her doctor that her blood pressure only spiked when she was in the room with him and was able to come off of her blood pressure medication because of it. So there are tools that we can use if we use them in the right way. And so I'm not talking about Angry Birds, I'm talking about how seniors are the fastest growing adopters of technology because it helps them stay connected, it helps them stay engaged, and it helps them stay needed. So we have to figure out how to build that human element using those technologies. It's really the key to success. What's exciting is technology has finally broken out of the hospital. Technology was actually one of the main drivers for the centralization of the healthcare system. It was so big, it was so expensive that we couldn't put it out in the community with the doctor visits. We had to put it all within walls. But now it's becoming small enough, it's becoming cheap enough that we can bring it out into the community. And so now we can do things, we can do assessments in the home, we have point of care diagnostics, we can do things on the run while you're walking with new technology that we're developing to analyze your gait, to analyze your behavioral patterns. CloudDX is a company that we're working with. They were a Canadian entry into the Qualcomm X Prize. They have a new technology that just by listening to your cough, they can diagnose 7 different respiratory diseases. It doesn't always have to be what we consider this hospital medical technology. It's emerging. The challenge is how we actually adopt that. How do we get that out into the community? Because current approaches are saying, we want to use this technology to save the health system money. We need to save money. But maybe it's about how we use these technologies in a way that will actually help people stay healthy in the first place so that they're not having to use the expensive resources of the healthcare system. And that actually becomes a much easier proposition because it becomes about engagement. It becomes about people. So we can use this process to say, look, it's not about alienating you. It's not about taking this technology and going home and leaving us alone. It's about how do we use technology like this to get efficiencies in the system? How do we use this technology over time? We know now if we take measurements over a period of time, we can actually improve our diagnostic potential. You can only see so much with a doctor in 5 minutes being there. But if we take measurements over time, we can see small trends in your health and intervene before it becomes a problem. So this is where you all come in. And this is where it gets really exciting. I love listening to the minister speak because she's so passionate about what's going on. And this is something we should all be passionate about. We are building a living lab here in New Brunswick that is getting national attention. What the hell's a living lab? Well, a living lab is this. It's basically a collection of people working together to actually make things better, right? Working across disciplines, public, private, researchers, innovation. Hey, wait, that sounds pretty familiar. That sounds like the stuff that you've just heard about tonight. This is happening in New Brunswick, and it's really exciting. So why is it happening in New Brunswick? Well, there's a couple reasons. I'll tell you the bad, and I'll tell you the good. So on the not-so-great side of things, it's because we have to. We have no choice. We have to make changes. As the minister said, we are Canada's oldest per capita province in the country. We have one of the highest rates of chronic disease. We have a population in need. That makes us a microcosm for the rest of Canada, and it makes us that proverbial canary in the coal mine. So the country is starting to look at New Brunswick and saying, hey, you've got challenges. Hey, you've got opportunities too. So why don't we use New Brunswick as a living lab to figure out how to get aging right? But it's not all negative. It's about people. And this is where I get really excited about New Brunswick. We have a history of innovation. If you ever go to the NBIF website and look at the things that we do here, we've invented so many cool things here as a province, you'd never believe it. But we're also excellent now. We have national recognition for expertise in IT, cybersecurity, health research. We have companies like VeraSource, eChart Healthcare, T4G becoming leaders in digital health systems across this province, being leaders in this space. We have long-term care facilities like Your Care Center here in Fredericton, Loch Lomond Villa in St. John, who are choosing to invest their time in being open and adaptive to taking on new technologies and new systems. So we have this ecosystem of people all starting to pull the rope in the same direction. And it's really exciting. So I see a flashing red light, which tells me I have to wrap up. So I want to leave you with this notion. So time. My students keep laughing at me because I'm getting a little obsessed about time. Time for many different reasons. One is time is precious. We don't want to waste our time, right? We want to use our energy to move in a good direction. But also as we move our healthcare system from this reactive system to something that's a little more proactive, that's going to take time. Reacting to something that happens, you can do right away. Stopping something from happening requires a little thought ahead of time. We have machine learning, we have artificial intelligence, we have technologies that can do amazing things. Predict when falls are going to happen. Predict when somebody's going to have an adverse reaction to a medication that they're taking. Predict when somebody's going to have a mental health issue because they're being isolated from everybody else. But it requires us to gather together and figure out it's not just about the technology, it's how we use that technology for people. And so I'm really interested in this concept of time for many different reasons, because time, yes, it has a wonderful way of showing us what's important, but it's also the time now. There's a lot of great stuff happening in New Brunswick, and I'd love to invite you all, everybody here, to get involved in that process. This Living Lab is not about somebody at a university doing research on a particular topic. It's about taking that research, turning it into innovation, getting it out into the community, and getting the community involved in that research. That's really what the Living Lab is. As we're trying to attract large companies to New Brunswick, researchers to New Brunswick, they're coming because of the people. They're coming because of you and the people that are involved in these processes. It's so exciting when we have CEOs of companies or national centers of excellence like AgeWell or the Canadian Frailty Network coming here and being blown away, not only by the people, by our government being open and adaptive to being parts of these things. They leave here every time amazed by the people and the things that we have going on. So I'd like to invite you all to be part of it. Reach out to the researchers of our community. We love what we do. And we love to tell people about it. So reach out to us and become part of this Living Lab because it's a lot of fun. So thank you very much for your time.